At my daughter's baptism, my husband's sister told the priest I wasn't spiritual enough to be a mother. He hesitated mid-ceremony. My husband said, "She meant well. Don't ruin today over a comment." I smiled through it, but weeks later, she got a letter from our church revoking her role as godmother. When she called screaming, I said, "Turns out I am spiritual, just not forgiving." Let me just start by saying this. I never wanted to write something like this. I never thought I'd be that person, quietly keeping score while everyone around me told me to just let it go. But what happened during my daughter's baptism was not something you just forget. And it wasn't the kind of thing you forgive just because it happened in church. We live just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a small, close-knit area where people notice what pew you sit in and how often you're there. My husband, Jake, grew up here. His family is well known in our parish, active, respected, loud. Especially his sister, Callie. Callie is intense. She's the kind of woman who thinks every part of her life has to reflect her love for Jesus. Her kitchen has "Bless This Mess" signs, her kids go to Christian school, and she leads the church choir even though she can't hold a note in tune. She volunteers for everything and lets you know about it. Her version of small talk is asking you if you've felt the Spirit lately. I tried really hard to get along with her. When Jake and I got married, I smiled through her long-winded speech at the rehearsal dinner about how I wasn't raised in the same light, but hopefully would grow into it. I let it go when she tried to have a prayer circle at my bridal shower. I even nodded along when she gave us a crucifix for our bedroom as a wedding gift. But things started to crack after I got pregnant. She was constantly hovering. "Are you praying with the baby? Do you have a church picked out yet? Are you going to raise her properly?" She'd say things like, "I hope you're not going to baptize her just to check a box, and don't you think a child needs a spiritual mother to guide her?" I told Jake, and he always brushed it off. "That's just Callie. She doesn't know when to quit, but she means well." I swallowed it.
For peace.
For family.
For him.
Then came the baptism. We had it at the same church Jake grew up in, the one Callie basically lives at. I didn't push back when Jake said she should be Gracie's godmother. I knew it meant a lot to him. I didn't love the idea, but I agreed. I even tried to convince myself it might be good for Gracie to have someone so committed. The day of the baptism started off nice. My parents drove in from Virginia. Jake's family showed up early, dressed like it was Easter Sunday. Gracie was in a white gown my mom had saved from when I was a baby. I was nervous, but happy. Then everything went sideways. The ceremony was going fine. Gracie was calm. The priest was saying the usual things. Then he looked at me and said, "Is the mother baptized and active in the church?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Callie beat me to it. Right there, in front of everyone, she said, loud and clear, "Well, Father, she was baptized as a child, but I wouldn't say she's particularly spiritual. I've tried to help her." The priest paused. Everyone heard it. My parents. Jake's grandparents. The whole room shifted. I felt it like a cold breeze. He eventually moved on, but it was awkward.
His tone changed.
Like he was unsure whether he should even continue. Afterward, I tried to keep a straight face. We took pictures outside. I held Gracie close while Callie smiled next to me like nothing had happened. Everyone acted like it was fine. But I was boiling. Jake could tell something was off. I pulled him aside behind the church. "Did you hear what your sister said?" He shrugged. "Yeah, but she meant well. Don't ruin today over a comment." That's when I realized I was alone in this. I smiled through the rest of the day. Through the cake and the pictures and the polite congratulations. But something inside me hardened. For the next 2 weeks, I didn't talk to Callie. She texted a few times, photos from the day, little prayers, even a message saying, "I hope you know I'm here to guide Gracie spiritually."
I didn't reply.
Then I went to the church office. I scheduled a private meeting with the priest. I told him exactly what happened, word for word. I told him how Callie embarrassed me, how she made me feel small during what was supposed to be my daughter's sacred moment. I told him I wasn't asking him to believe I was the most spiritual mother, just that I deserved basic respect. He nodded the whole time, took notes, asked if I had anything in writing. I showed him screenshots of texts where Callie had implied I wasn't faithful enough to raise a child. He didn't make promises, but he thanked me for coming in. 2 weeks after that, it happened. Callie got an official letter from the church. She was removed as godmother.
Permanently.
They reassigned the role to Jake's cousin Tom, who had been the godfather anyway. No ceremony, no fanfare. Just a quiet administrative change. Callie lost her mind. She called my phone over and over. I ignored the first 5 calls. On the 6th, I answered. She was screaming. "What did you do? You lied. You poisoned the church against me." I waited for her to finish, then said, "Turns out I am spiritual, just not forgiving." She hung up. 10 minutes later, Jake came storming into the living room with the letter in hand. "Did you go behind my back and talk to the priest?" I said yes. I told him everything.
Calm. Clear.
She embarrassed me. She questioned my worth as a mother in front of everyone. "You told me not to ruin that day, so I didn't." But I wasn't going to let her walk away from that like it was okay. He didn't talk to me for 3 days. But when he finally did, he didn't bring her up again. He just said, "You went too far." Maybe I did. But sometimes people need to learn that saying things in God's name doesn't protect you from consequences. And I'm not going to let my daughter grow up thinking her mother let herself be humiliated in a church and smiled through it forever. I can't take back that day. But I made damn sure no one forgets what Callie did. And I made sure she won't ever stand at that altar again. After the godmother letter incident, things got quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet where you know something's building. A storm behind a door. Jake went back to normal on the surface. Dinners, bedtime with Gracie, mowing the lawn. But underneath, there was a shift. He wasn't affectionate.
He stopped asking me about my day.
He'd stay up late watching TV after I went to bed. One night, I asked him directly, "Are you still angry about Callie?" He didn't even look up from his phone. Just said, "I don't know who you are anymore." That hit harder than I thought it would. A few days later, I saw Callie's post on Facebook. She had written this long rant about family betrayal, how even churches can be manipulated, and how God sees the truth even when others are blind to it. She didn't name names, but it didn't matter. Everyone knew. The comments were full of people from her Bible study, saying things like, "You're a real one, Callie," and "God's got you, girl." Jake's mom, of course, shared the post with the caption, "Some people forget who raised them right." It was clear they'd all circled the wagons. And I was outside of it. Then the real backlash started. Gracie's daycare is affiliated with the church. Same building. Same staff. A few weeks after the baptism, I went to pick her up and noticed the director, a woman named Mrs. Tinsley, barely made eye contact with me. One of the teachers, who used to chat with me about baby food recipes, gave me a tight smile and turned away. That weekend, we got an email saying Gracie's spot would not be renewed in the fall due to increased enrollment from returning families. I knew what that meant. I showed Jake. He read it, scrolled back to the top, and said, "So you're dragging our daughter into this now?" I snapped. "I didn't do this.
Your sister did.
Your family did."
He didn't argue.
He just walked away. I started looking for a new daycare immediately. Found one a few towns over. It was farther, more expensive, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to let Gracie stay somewhere where people saw her as the daughter of the less spiritual mother. But the damage was already done. Jake became distant.
Cold.
We were barely roommates. Every conversation felt like a fight waiting to happen. Every dinner was quiet. I'd feed Gracie, clean up, and he'd vanish into the garage or the backyard. One night, after I put Gracie down, I found him sitting outside in the dark, beer in hand. I sat next to him and said, "Is this how it's going to be now? Forever?" He took a sip and said, "You don't get it. You didn't just go after Callie. You embarrassed all of us." I lost it. She embarrassed me. In front of a priest. In front of my parents. In front of my baby. And you let her.
She's my sister, he said.
I'm your wife. I was shaking. And you chose her.
He didn't respond.
I went inside, sat on the floor of Gracie's room, and cried so quietly I didn't even wake her. Things didn't get better. They got worse. Then one morning, I noticed Jake left his laptop open on the kitchen counter. Not something he usually does. I wasn't trying to snoop, but I saw an email on the screen. It was from Callie. Subject line: told you this would happen. The message was short. She's not cut out for this life, Jake. She's tearing you away from who you are.
From your real family.
Let her go before she does worse. I stood there staring at it, waiting for the floor to open up.
I didn't say anything.
Not right away. I waited. I needed to know how deep this went, so I looked deeper. The next few days, I played dumb. I didn't mention the email. I didn't bring up Callie. I smiled when Jake was around. I laughed with Gracie louder than usual. I needed him relaxed. I needed time. I knew if Callie had said something like that in an email, there was probably more. So I waited until Jake was in the garage one night, messing with the lawnmower or whatever else he used to avoid me, and I opened his laptop again. I didn't have to guess his password. It was still our anniversary date. I went to his email first, nothing else from Callie. But then I checked a folder labeled Archives. It was full of messages between him and her. Months worth. Some before the baptism. Some just days after. All of it dripping with manipulation. She wrote things like, "Mom says she never felt like she belonged to us. Don't forget how she talked down to you about raising Gracie your way. Women like her always take and isolate." But one message caught my eye. It was from 2 weeks before the baptism. If she's not going to take this seriously, maybe she shouldn't even be a mother. Someone needs to say something before it's too late. I felt sick. That line from the baptism, her telling the priest I wasn't spiritual enough, it wasn't just a slip. It was planned.
Talked about.
Justified. Jake hadn't stopped her. He'd talked it through with her. I backed away from the laptop like it had burned me. The next morning, I couldn't look at him the same. Every time he picked up Gracie or kissed her cheek, I kept hearing that line. Maybe she shouldn't even be a mother. They tried to take that from me. I needed to do something. Not out of revenge anymore, but to protect myself. To protect my daughter. So I started collecting. Screenshots. Emails. Messages from people at church who had heard whispers from Callie about me not being fit. I made a folder on a flash drive. Labeled it for Grace in case. Then I met with a lawyer. Quietly. I didn't file anything. I just asked questions. What would happen if things didn't get better? What my options were? What custody might look like? What rights I had? He asked me, "Are you in danger?" "No," I said. "But someone is trying to make me look dangerous. And I don't want to wait until they succeed." When I got home that day, Jake was waiting at the table. He didn't say hello. He just said, "Why are you looking through my emails?" I stared at him. You knew what she was going to say at the baptism. He didn't deny it.
She warned you.
She told you she'd question me in front of the priest, and you didn't stop her. Still nothing. You were okay with it. You let her go up there and make me look unfit. He finally spoke. "You've never really wanted to be part of this. Part of us." I laughed. Bitter. "I married you. I carried your child. I stood in a church that made me feel like I didn't belong, and I still tried. I let your sister baptize my daughter, even when I knew she didn't respect me." He looked down. "You talk about family like it's this sacred thing, but all you've done is protect her while she tried to humiliate me. Over and over." Then I told him something that changed everything. I met with a lawyer. His head snapped up. "I haven't filed anything.
Yet.
But if you and Callie keep pushing, if you keep trying to erase me from my own daughter's life, then yeah, I'll burn this all down." He looked terrified. Not of me. Of what that would look like. How it would reflect on him. Then, finally, I saw a flicker of something real. "Did she really say you weren't fit?" he asked quietly. I just said, "I have it saved. You can read it for yourself." He didn't ask to. Instead, he left the house. It was after midnight before he came back. But he didn't come alone. He brought her. I stood in the hallway when I heard the door open. The sound of keys hitting the table. Jake's footsteps, then another pair right behind him. I stepped into the living room, and there she was. Callie. She stood like she owned the house. Like she'd been invited to fix everything. She held a folder in one hand and wore a smug smile, like this was a meeting she was going to win. Jake didn't even look at me. He just walked to the kitchen, poured himself a drink, and sat down. Callie started before I could speak. I came here because clearly there's been some misunderstanding, she said, her voice all fake concern. And I think it's time we settle this like adults. I looked at Jake. You brought her here? After everything? He rubbed his face. You were talking about lawyers.
Callie cut in.
You threatened to take his daughter away. That's not something we're going to let happen.
We.
That one word made my chest burn. She had finally said it plain. This was a team effort. Jake and Callie. Husband and sister. Against me. I laughed, a short, sharp sound. You think you're protecting him? Or do you just want to control one more thing in his life? Callie stepped forward, placing the folder on the coffee table like it was evidence. You've been unstable since the baptism. You've cut off his family, tried to isolate him, and now you're threatening custody lawyers. That's not spiritual. That's not healthy. I picked up the folder. Inside were screenshots, my texts venting to friends, a few posts I'd made in a private mom group about feeling unwelcome at church, even a receipt from my meeting with the lawyer. I stared at Jake. You gave her these? He shifted in his seat. She said you were spiraling. I didn't know what to believe. That was it. I saw it clearly then. They wanted me out. Not physically, not at first, but slowly. Emotionally. Spiritually. They'd been trying to wear me down, twist the story, make me look like the unstable one. So that when I did finally snap, they could say, see? Told you she wasn't fit. But I hadn't snapped.
Not yet.
And now? Now I would. I went to the drawer in the hallway and came back with my folder. The flash drive. I tossed it on the table. You want to talk evidence? Let's talk. I opened it and laid everything out. Emails from Callie, months before the baptism, telling Jake I wasn't mother material. Screenshots where she talked about turning the priest against me. Notes from my meeting with the church. Texts from church members saying Callie had warned them I might pull something legal to get full custody. Then I pulled out a printed copy of an anonymous email that had been sent to the new daycare I had applied to. It read, You should know this mother has threatened to take her child from a Christian home. She is unstable and has already been asked to leave one church-affiliated daycare. Be cautious. The director had forwarded it to me privately. She told me it looked like a smear campaign. Did you write that? I asked Callie. She didn't say a word. Jake looked at her. Really looked. Did you? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Get out, he said. Callie froze. Jake, I said, get out. She stared at him like he was a stranger. Then turned to me, eyes full of hate. You think you've won? You think any of this makes you right? I stepped closer, calm. I think it makes me done. Done pretending. Done being polite. Done letting you pretend you're doing God's work when all you've ever done is hurt people. She left, slamming the door so hard the baby monitor crackled. Jake sat down slowly, staring at the mess of papers between us. I didn't comfort him. I didn't say anything. The next morning, I emailed the church. I told them everything. Every manipulation. Every lie. I didn't ask for anything back. I just made sure the truth was in writing. Jake spent the next week walking on eggshells. He apologized once barely. Then he moved into the guest room. I let him stay, for Gracie.
For now.
But I'm not done. My daughter will grow up knowing that her mother didn't bend to pressure. That she wasn't erased by guilt or fear. That when someone tried to humiliate her at a sacred moment, she fought back. Quietly.
Precisely.
Callie doesn't come around anymore. No more Facebook posts, no more fake concern. Jake's family barely talks to me. Which is fine. because I've stopped asking to be accepted. I'm not this spiritual woman they wanted. But I'm the one who stood my ground. And when Gracie's old enough to ask what happened, I'll tell her this. Your baptism was holy. But what came after? That's when I really found my faith.